Namaste. I, Ashish Niraj, welcome you all on behalf of Society for Empowerment on our webinar on mind, climate change, and its impact on tribal India. Before we invite our guest speakers, I would like to request our President, Chairman Professor S. Narayan sir, to give a small introduction about today's topic. Professor S. Narayan sir.
Okay, thank you, Neeraj. Uh, we are happy to see you with us after a long gap. And today's topic is mind, climate change, and its impact on tribal India. This topic is very current because there was a meeting addressed by the Honorable Prime Minister on this issue, and so many questions were raised at the international platform. And there was one question that was raised in that meeting about the indigenous population, the climate of the indigenous population, and the challenges being faced by the indigenous population. So I thought that will be we will be supplementing to that issue which is being widely discussed. And today we have expert like Dr. A.K. Pandey. He has been associated with the Department of Forest and Environment for a long time, and he has a lot of interest in environment and ecology. Then we have our patron, Dr. A.K. Pandey, uh, who will give the presidential address after our presentation, and that will be, I think, a very important speech by him. By introducing the theme, why I added mind. Mind means we just put mind in terms of the tribal mind, in terms of the mind of the urban population, in terms of the mind of the cosmopolitan population, that their mind varies from tribal to village to urban population on the perception and presentation of climate change and its impact on tribal India. When we say climate change, it means the ecology environment is changing very fast, and that change is making impact on our life and the whole system, whole ecosystem, and the whole holistic lifestyle. So that is a very big question for the country and for the policymaker, for the planners, how to address it. Very easily one get details of the uh, urban or cosmopolitan city, as you might be reading in newspaper that the city like Delhi is widely affected by the pollution, and the pollution level is such that the Supreme Court has to lock down in Delhi, and the schools and offices were closed. So this is the kind of the impact. This is the kind of the mindset in cosmopolitan city, in big cities, and in some small cities. That impact is not very so much because of the density of population, because of the imbalance and balance in ecological and environmental system. And in tribal India, this is equally less in comparison to urban centers, because the population in tribal India, the density of population in tribal India is not that much, and the ecology and environment is friendly to the tribals, and the tribals are very much interested in maintaining their ecology and environment. So today we will be discussing it, that why this is there. So first of all, I will present a general picture. Then Professor M.R. Gangadharji will give his presentation, and then if by that time, if Mrs. Anantamula comes, then she will be talking about herself, her presentation. Or, uh, or if she is not coming, turning up, then uh, Dr. A.K. Pandey, the patron of the society, will sum up the presentation and will give his own remarks and his own things about that. So, if we look at the uh, dynamics of, or the mind dynamics of mind of climate change, we find that it is at a different level. The minds of the people who are affected by the climate change in the cosmopolitan city is different than what it is in tribal India. So that we have to consider, that needs to be considered while drafting policy or making programs for balancing the ecology and environment. So meaning thereby that we cannot have a uniform, broadly we can have the uniform system, we can have a uniform policy, we can have a uniform program for the climate change. But when question of tribal comes, we have to take into account, and accordingly the policy and plan needs to be drafted and implemented, so that there may not be the tribal India may not be burdened with the ecological
क्या कर करो
imbalances.
इसका
So
साउंड ही
the
खराब हो गया साउंड ही खराब हो
so
गया
आपका
है हैं? हाँ हाँ
you have
मैंने
you have
वो
some
भेजता है
problem, Doctor. But
सर एक्चुअली उनके आवाज में प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, उनको सुनाई नहीं पड़ रहा है, इसीलिए वो बार बार लॉग इन ट्राई कर रहे हैं। कोई बात नहीं, वो आ जाएंगे सर।
अच्छा अच्छा, कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. Then if we look at the mind thinking about climate change, then there are, you see, at the urban center, at the rural center, and at the tribal center, there are different folk songs related to climate change. Folk songs, folk stories, folk tales are there for the climate change, and that speaks about the mind of the people, mind of the man, of which is our subject. Then there is a tribal's perspective uh, of climate change. What they think of the climate change is different from what we think in urban India. That is largely because you see they have songs, dances, and folk tales related to climate change, and they worship, each tree in tribal India is worshipped, and seldom they cut the tree unless it becomes very essential for them to fulfill their day-to-day needs. They cut tree only when they think that now there is no option except to cut the tree. Otherwise, there are rituals, there are folk songs, there are folk dances, the tribal songs related to climate change. And the expert of the rural India or the urban India they they have their own mind of climate change because they by getting the data from each three at each level, all the three levels, then they go for the policy, and that policy have the inputs from the rural, urban, and complex society. So that is for a particular community, for a particular country, and for a particular social group. Similarly, the climate change in global perspective is different from all that. Because when we talk of the climate change at the global level, then there it becomes very, very technical. There we do not, the consideration of folk tales, folklore, folk songs, folk dances are very, very limited. We take them, we take all those things in consideration, but it is not that important. But the but since we are discussing with the tribal India, so the climate change in tribal India, we find that it has a great importance. Great importance means the tribals are largely, if we look at the tribals, we find that the tribals broadly are uh, categorized in nomadic tribe, slash and burn cultivation, tribes doing slash and burn cultivation, then tribes practicing shifting cultivation, then tribes practicing settled cultivation. So these are the four categories of the tribals, the whole of India, or you can say the globally, we classify the tribes in these four categories. And we find that the tribals who are at the practicing the settled cultivation, they are much concerned with the climate change because the rain, the period of rain is also extending, and the density of rain is also extending, which is a primary requirement for cultivation. So that affects their economy, that affects their social life, that affects their social practices, songs, and folk dances. Because they have the traditional institution like Dumkuria, in which youth are trained to identify and understand the nature of a sky, and by seeing the sky, they can suggest that yes, the rain will come, and what will be the quantity of rain, that they can also say. And for that, they have a lot of songs. They have a lot of folk songs and folk stories. So on the basis of that, they say. But those who are practicing the slash and burn cultivation, they just they burn a particular region, the forest or the small trees and plants for cultivation of a particular place in 1 year, and then they shift to another place, adjoining place, agricultural field for next year. So that what happens that when they burn, then they again they are causing the uh, problem of the or the adding the input for climate change in tribal India. So in tribal India, we have impact of climate change that needs to be understood, and we have to draft policy and implement it accordingly. Otherwise, if we draft policy in isolation or in uniform policy, then it will not work. It will fail, and the whole purpose will be defeated because the emission of carbon dioxide, or the emission of or the intake of oxygen, that varies from the urban centers to this tribal center. So the Jhum cultivation is the in which they burn the cultivation, burn all the forest or small plants, that needs to be reconsidered by the concerned department, and that needs to, those who are tribes who are practicing it needs to be educated that if you don't burn, otherwise it will create further, it will add add to the problem of this climate change, and it will have a negative impact on the development of the tribals agriculture and on mind. So that is an important input that needs to be considered. Then there is a I have discussed about the shuttle tribes who are practicing uh, agriculture on particular piece of land each year. So for them, that burning of is not that big problem. But then burning of the paddies uh, or weeds uh, that in the farm, that is another serious concern, and that needs to be changed. For that, I feel that if the institution of Dhumpuria is activated and if the tribals are trained through their traditional institutions, the problem of the climate change, the impact of the climate change on tribal India can be minimized and can be controlled. It will not be that difficult as it is in urban India or in rural India. That is that needs our consideration, and this is the theme. This is the introductory lecture for today's discussion, and we have to take into consideration that whatever deliberation we are doing, that somehow or other, because in last webinar on which we discussed, that has a that all those papers and all the recordings were that has been given to government for the as an input for policy drafting, and so we hope that whatsoever deliberation we are making here, maybe again because the topic is so current, that it may be required to be submitted to government. We may get some letter that yes, or some phone call that now whatsoever is your suggestion given by our experts, our esteemed members of the society needs to be submitted. So we have to be very pinpointed in giving the suggestions, and we have at least 20 minutes time for Professor Gangadharji and for Dr. A.K. Pandey and for the Anantamula if she comes. I don't know why, what has happened that she has not turned up because she was very serious and she has sent the abstract also, and her photo is also, she sent photo. But I do not know why she has not turned up. Maybe because she must be sleeping. This is around between 3 to 4 in the morning. So now I would like to request Professor Imar Gangadharji, who is chairman of Anthropology Department of Mysore University and is a well-known anthropologist and is working for the tribals. Though he is a biological anthropologist, but he has equal command on the social cultural anthropology, and he is a, key person of the training program of the Society for Empowerment. So, under his guidance, we always organize training on behalf of Society for Empowerment. So now I will request Professor Imar Gangadharji to present his views. Professor Gangadharji.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Thanks, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good
Respected
evening.
Narayan, sir. Respected A.K. Pandey, sir. Neeraj and friends. Uh, Impact of climate change on life and livelihood of tribal population uh, in India is one of the very important issue. Uh, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to highlight about the forest environment and livelihood of tribes, climate change and livelihood problems of tribes, impact of climate change on life support strategies, like impact on agriculture, impact on weed and infestation of crops, impact on forest, resources from wild, faunal changes, impact on birds, impact on bee and butterfly and other things. Climate change, popularly known as a global warming, has today become a major issue in the international level. The potential impact of climate change are largely include extreme weather condition, greater intensity of floods and droughts, upsurge of diseases such as malaria, dengue fever, asthma, and other respiratory illness due to a global warming and air pollution. Other possible impact are on the coastal and low-lying lands due to sea level rise, adverse effect on agriculture due to change in the soil condition, water supply, and water quality, and damage to mountain and wetland ecosystem. Scientific evidences for global warming is now considered irrevocable, and climate change impact are lately being held responsible for instability in monsoon, resulting in spells of intense precipitation and unusual long dry spells. In general, the tribal population directly depend on the forest flora and fauna for their subsistence and survival. They collect the non-timber forest produce items apart from their traditional agriculture system like shifting cultivation, settled and terrace cultivation, as well as horticulture and kitchen gardening. The economy of this traditional society is being driven by biodiversity, both natural and human managed. Climate change related impact taken along with other anthropogenic impact on ecosystem will threaten their immediate livelihood concern with a long-term impact on sustainable development of the region. The impact of climate change is a larger context will be felt in terms of coping with the environment, uncertainty arising out of polar and ice mountain ice cap melt and sea level rise. India is tribes in India constitute a second largest population in the world next to Africa. India represents 705 tribes with a population of 10.4 crores. That is 8% of total 8% of the population, as per the 2011 census. Forest management and livelihood of tribes. Forest dwelling tribe population in our country is estimated around 68 millions. Still, large majority of tribals are population depending on natural environment of forest flora and fauna in order for their livelihood. They are very much attached to forest ecology and adapted to it and its cold climatic condition. And at present, the problem of deforestation directly affect the livelihood of tribals and creating food insecurity and poverty are the major problem to them, which are intertwined with the forest environment in which they inhabit centuries together. Deforestation is an environmental issue which receives much attention globally from anthropologists, planners, administrators, natural scientists, social scientists, and others. Uh, it is observed that tribals are the worst affected people due to forest degradation, and it definitely creating survival problem for the tribal people and adverse effect on their livelihood. And it is observed that climate has a main influence in the development of civilization, including characteristics such as religious belief and rituals, as well as the material culture. Degradation of forest resulted to depletion of forest resources and decline of rainfall and snowfall. And it is also creating a food insecurity and acute drinking water problem to a large majority of the tribal people. Due to degradation of forest, literally the tribals lost their permanent energy base of forest flora and fauna. The incidence of malnutrition, morbidity, and mortality is also increasing enormously among the tribals since last one decade. Large majority of people are facing the problem for their subsistence and survival. The tribes in the Eastern Ghats associated with wildlife, and they
Yes.
identify more than 60 animals which are encountered as a part of their daily life. And they classify of wildlife into animals, birds, reptiles, snakes, scorpions, rodent, etc. is particularly oriented. They know the subgroups of each animal, their possible hideout, general behavior, reproductive cycle, and the use of animal parts as a medicine. They are aware of possible diseases that affected the wild animal and the remedies for some of them. They can easily identify 30 varieties of snake along with their hideouts characteristics. Most interesting is some of their habit of sucking milk from lacting mothers, cows, rats are edible animals, most of the tribes, which promotes them to know details of the rats and squirrels. They also identify 70 varieties of birds in the forest. And they collect 42 varieties of medicinal herbs in the forest and sell those herbs to Girijan Cooperative Society. In addition to this, they also collect non-timber forest produce item in the forest, which is another source of income. This knowledge of wild animal and their behavior help them in devising appropriate hunting technique. Uh, it is clearly indicate that tribes in Eastern Ghats are very much attached to the ecology of forest and exploit the forest resource primarily for their subsistence and survival. Over exploitation of forest resources by the indigenous people and other outside agency resulting to degradation of forest environment and creating livelihood problem to large majority of the aboriginals. The tribal people are directly affected by the climate of Eastern Ghats. However, even the rural urban dwellers of adjoining Eastern Ghat area also indirectly affected with the problem of climate change. That's one. And perturbation of natural forest environment. Uh, Impact of climate change on life support strategies for impact on agriculture. The land productivity has decreased and pest infestation has increased due to change in the climate. Agriculture is of subsistence type and highly dependent on rain. Snow is an important source of soil moisture and essential for agriculture and growth of pastures. Optimal productivity of most horticultural crops is also depend on persistence of a relatively low temperature for appreciable long duration. In this period, plant remain in a dormant stage and come out of it when the conditions are suitable for growth. Climate change is known to affect two most important agricultural inputs, water and temperature, or agricultural productivity is sensitive to two broad classification of climate induced effect. One is direct effect from change in temperature, precipitation, and carbon dioxide concentration. Second one is indirect effect, through changes in soil moisture and the distribution and frequency of infestation by pests and diseases. Overall, seasonal precipitation determine the yield over a large area, but stress and dry spells threaten productivity even a few hours at a crucial growth stage. Uh, the phenological responses of plant, particularly the early flowering ones, are considered among the most prominent biological indicators of climate change. Due to reduced winter period, dormancy of plants is broken relatively early, and this is reflecting in early flowering. The plant thus flowers at a time when weather conditions are not favorable for their growth and survival. This reduce fruiting and thus productivity. Warm winter temperature reduce fruits, set of many in the field, and this situation is further exacerbated by the use of pesticides that also wipe out useful insects. Low productivity is also linked to the use of chemical fertilizer and herbicides. It is a general perception that chemical cause loss of soil fertility and bring forth changes in soil structure. This reportedly result in the formation of hard crust in the soil, which is hard to break and required heavy plow for tilting. This is also perceived to reduce porosity and water holding capacity of the soil. Phenological response of plants, particularly the early flowering ones, is considered a prominent biological indicator of climate change. The timing of flowering and fruiting of plants has changed. Early flowering is almost all agricultural, horticultural, and wild species is reported to be a common observation. This change is attributed to increase in temperature, shorten and less harsh winter, early onset of summer. Agriculture is becoming economically unviable due to reduced productivity and increased input cost because of use of agrochemicals. Weeds and infestation of crops, the increase infestation of in crops from the in the field, insects being the phyllotherians. Temperature is probably the single most important environmental factor influencing the behavior, distribution, development, survival, and reproduction. Major drive climate change are elevated carbon dioxide level, increased temperature, and depleted soil moisture. Therefore, affect population dynamics of insects, pests, and thus significantly enhance the extent to crop loss. And the reason for the same include change in flow cycle, higher fertilizers, increased less to soil. These are exotic weeds invading the traditional rain-fed agriculture area. Changing temperature and precipitation pattern together with decreasing crop rotation and mixed cropping practices have been held responsible for the same. Growing incidence of crop infestation are also attributed to increased use of chemical fertilizer. Climate change has impact on forests. The forests are becoming degraded with the attribute because of road construction activities, increased fuel use due to population pressure, loss of vegetation due to glacial action and other disasters, forest fire, and overgrazing, and the decreased regeneration rate of trees in the forest area. Reduced rainfall and increased duration of dry spells are held responsible for low regeneration rate. These are reported to result in weathering and drying of buds and flowers thereby adversely affecting the growth and regeneration of forest. And people traditionally depend on forest for timber, fuel wood, non-timber forest produce foders and leaf litter that is used for bedding material for livestock. And this degradation forest is in the mild slope when concentration of population is high, as reduce the availability of fodder and leaf litters, which implicates on the productivity of both livestock and agricultural land. Animals from the wild, large population depend on forest resources for supplementing income, resource-based food and nutrition. A dependency on forest produce generally increase when agriculture production is low and is during the drought or other natural calamities. Most sought after wild plants varieties sprouted after the snow begins to
Hello.
melt in the valley. People consume this
Yes, please
by
join. Come on the seminar. Please join the webinar.
preparing
Webinar is in session.
several recipes, also dry for this later use. Food produced such as fruits, roots, leaves, and mushrooms are very common. Faunal changes. It is observed changes in the population and behavior of wild animal and others in the forest around their villages. It is also reported that wild animals have lately shed their natural fear of humans, started to come over too close to inhabitation and
क्या होगा
क्या हुआ?
इंटरनेट तो खत्म हो गया
उनसे कहें उनका माधवी 1950
हो गया इंटरनेट है तो
and it is
What happened?
hello.
Neeraj ji,
It
what
is
happened?
observed changes in population and behavior of wild and others in the forest around their villages. And it is also reported that wild animals have lately shed their natural fear of humans and started coming to very close to the habitation and agricultural field. Climate induced changes have both direct and indirect impact on habitation, distribution limits, and food availability for wild animals. Search of food is perceived to drive wild animals to the habitation. Climate change is put forth as one of the reasons for random movement of Himalayan black bear towards habitation. On bird impact on birds population due to climate change is reported in the form of shortened breeding period or failure to make nests and reproduce due to change in the plant phenology, food availability, and habitat alteration. Long dry spell fail to induce flowering and fruiting of plants together with emergence of insect that results in low food availability for the birds. Bees and butterflies are considered to be the indicator of ecosystem changes and are used for predicting various environmental activities. Their specific survival related environment and humidity and egg habitats make most vulnerable to climate change. Reduced nectar availability due to dry spells and drought together with phenological changes are perceived to be responsible for their reduced population. Similar habitat of the bee is also perceived to have changed due to
हेलो
rising temperature and growth of modern infrastructure.
आवाज ब्रेक कर रहा है
that have little scope of accommodating this. Use of insights are perceived like a serious of honeybees. Monocropping that have become prevalent in the area reportedly required pesticide use of control various pests and disease. Besides reducing diversity of food sources, the pollinators is also kills many pollinators. Both diversity and abundance of pollinating insects has been greatly reduced in the forest. Uh, when we see the adaptation measures among the tribal people, traditional farming practices show fine assimilation, and the above practice of all this more relevant today in the changing scenario to combat the negative impact of changing climate. Agriculture, people in different regions are observed to resort to various measures, some of which are described. Fodder and fuel requirement, early sowing and crop selection, crop diversification, and organic farming, and mixed cropping and promotion of millet and pseudo cereals. So all these they are practicing to combat that. And pastoralism, the nomadic pastoralists traditionally cope with extreme climate in the region through a variety of practices. The practice of pastoralism has reduced, but those still practice it for keeping up with the changing climate. Rotational use of biofuels, pastures, allowing pastures to recover after intense grazing, division of livestock for grazing on different part of pasture on land, and raising different types of livestock which ensure different grazing habits and reduce herders risk for losing animal to one diseases is one. So to conclude, biodiversity depletion is resulting to climate change and adversely affecting the livelihood of tribal people. Since biodiversity linked land use, climate change, and its effect on livelihood of the tribes for the sustainable livelihood of traditional societies, such as seen in Eastern Ghats, the uncertainty derived from climate change will adversely impact upon biodiversity and thus will have serious ecological economic consequences for them. There is an immediate need of save the biodiversity from external threats of over-exploitation of its resources, protect natural water and minerals by the tribal communities, definitely pave way for their substantial livelihood in the years to come. Traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous knowledge system of aboriginals to be promoted in order to protect, conserve, and regeneration of forest biodiversity with a view to ensure sustainable livelihood and development among the most vulnerable, marginalized, deprived, improvised, and excluded tribal people areas in general. Both duration and amount of rainfall having changed significantly. Most precipitation is received as a rain rather than as snow. Changes in flora and faunal population and type together with change animal behavior also observed. Changing condition are reduced in loss of livelihood capital, changing in agro livestock conditions, and emergence of invasive species. The biggest impact is perceived to be on the portion of force of it. Fast pace of migration from these held responsible for this. Climate change is sure to have adverse impact on livelihood based on forestry, agriculture, livelihood, livestock, husbandry, non-timber produce products, and medicinal plants. Communities are observed to be react positively to changed situation and taking advantage of the niche and of their area and improvising on the traditional knowledge have to be start to grow commodities that are better suited to the changed scenario, and that's as a good market. They are also taking advantage of reducing the duration and harshness of winter for growing a new crop, and also organic farming that is observed to gain ground in the area is pursued to suitable the population of the pollinators and also control infestations of the weed. With this few words, I thank Narayan sir and others for giving me this opportunity to express my view about the climate change. It's one. Totally, tribal communities are facing a lot of problem and stress because of their all these problems. This one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you. Thank you,
Professor.
Professor Gangadhar Saab. Thank you very much
Sir,
for your lecture. Very much. Uh, Thank you. The society is thankful to you for your presentation. As you know that in last webinar also we had certain questions from the government. So with your presentation, I have also got two, three queries on
yes, sir.
behalf of the government. And the
Yes, sir.
people, I'm thankful to those who are watching our program on different through different media channels of YouTube and Facebook. So the first question is that the government would like to know about the lifespan of the tribals, whether this climate change has any impact on the lifespan of the tribals
Yeah, sir.
as a biological
Because
as a
see,
biological anthropologist.
there. Yeah, 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 sir. Because of this climate change, their traditional food habit is changing, and also they are not getting sufficient amount of nutritional food, and they are not getting the medicinal plants. So all these they are facing problem, and because of that, they are suffering from malnutrition, undernutrition, and also for certain diseases they are facing because of this air pollution as well as water pollution. So for that, they follow the traditional uh, medicine, but since because of this less rain, or even if it is heavy rain also, so they cannot collect the medicinal plant easily and treat their kith and kin in the tribal area. There are a lot of this type of problems are very common nowadays. This one.
Thank you.
And
Please.
also waterborne diseases are also very common.
Hmm.
Hello.
What should be our suggestion to government? What should be our suggestion? Because if the lifespan is being affected, it's going to lower side. As a biological anthropologist, as a social anthropologist, what suggestions we would give to as an input for policy and programs?
Sir, first thing is we have to concentrate on the control for climate change is adversely affecting the biodiversity. For that, we have to take a serious measure to control the industries, and also while constructing are during in the name of the development. They are making lot of uprooting the plants, trees. So whatever development they make, but it should not affect the environment. Without affecting the environment, if we take a means a development plan, that will be the best for them. Otherwise, it keep on affecting the deforestation is the major problem. And now, because of the deforestation, so they are facing a lot of these tribals are facing. They're not getting a sufficient amount of these agriculture land, and they cannot grow. And definitely it will have impact on the seasonal this one. And because of this, seasonal migrations will be there, and this will have a long impact on that. Seasonal migration is very serious problem because they move outside their area and they go and work, and they have started consuming alcohol and other food habits. So they are leaving their traditional food, and this will have a very serious impact on the population. So to control the all this, so they should get means sufficient land to do agriculture, and if there is a forest again, we have to regenerate. So if they get sufficient in that places, they don't move, and they can live comfortably there itself, and they can sustain in the same places. This one. So we have to totally first we have to protect the forest. That will be the great help for them, and they can survive very comfortably there.
No, in New Forest Act, Professor Gangadharji, in
Ah,
New
sir.
Forest Act, there is a
Ah, sir.
provision for forestation, and so a good number of
Yes, sir.
plants are planted each year. So that has been taken care of in the
Yes, sir.
policy. There is
Ah, sir.
another question which has been raised is physical health of the tribals. How much this is this affecting physical health of the tribals, and how it can be linked with the current policy of this tribal policy and climate change policy. How as an anthropologist or as a policy maker, what we can suggest to government?
Sir, major problem is tribals are suffering from malnutrition.
Malnutrition.
If they get good, good nutritious food, that will be that can be controlled because when the forest means when there is no problem in the sense if they get sufficient fruits, as agriculture and condition is good for them to do agriculture, then they will get sufficient food for them, and they need not move for as a migrated to different places. They can settle there, and they can take care of their health. So we have to control the malnutrition. If we take care of that, then their health will
For malnutrition,
have a
there are
good
some programs are running.
on the table.
There are some programs to control the malnutrition is running among the tribals in tribal India for tribal children and for the
Sir.
old persons. These programs are running. So, in addition to that, you are suggesting that some more
Sir.
program be introduced. What
Yeah.
programs? We have to
Yes,
get
sir.
the details.
It should
So my request to you will be that
Sir,
Society for
now
Society
they
for Empowerment will be submitting a
the
whatsoever the question has been raised. For that, we Society for Empowerment would like to we have to submit it. There is no question of our choice. We have to submit it, and I will request you to give some abstract or something level like 1 or 2 pages or 3 pages note on it
okay,
so
sir.
that it can be forwarded to the government. So thank you very much. You have raised
Okay,
very
okay.
pertinent issues, and in your talk, the government is taking interest, so they have
Okay,
raised some questions.
welcome.
They have raised some questions, so we have to answer these questions. We have to give an answer to them. I think that they are seeing, watching, and they are also taking note of our presentation. But the thing is that the existing policy and plan are there for this climate change, but that part is not sufficient for the tribals in India. That needs to be reconsidered, and
Yeah.
for that, I think we would like to recommend a short-term, in-depth study, selective study from the different regions of India in the broad categories, 4 broad categories of the tribals, so that the anthropologists can give their own opinion, depending upon the availability of the data which we have from the field. On the basis of that, the policy should try to incorporate all those suggestions and recommendations. Am I right? Or you have some other views? Professor Gangadhar ji, I think you have got my point. Hello, is my voice reaching to you? Neeraj ji? Neeraj ji,
Yes, sir, your voice is
voice
audible.
जा रहा है,
Yes, sir, your voice is
audible.
audible.
Gangadhar ji, whatsoever I have said, I think you have taken note of it. Hello. Oh, he is not listening. Our voice is not reaching to you, Gangadhar. Anyway, we will talk to you later. Are you listening? Is my voice coming to you? Am I audible to you?
Hello,
Am I audible
sir.
to you? Ah,
Yeah, sir. You are audible. Yes,
ah.
sir. See,
What,
there should be
what
a
I
common
was saying,
program.
ah, ah.
Tribe-specific program should be, yeah, because each tribe is unique and their belief practices are very unique, and accordingly, and food culture is also varied. So, tribe-specific program should be planned, and we have to involve them, and we have to make a programs. Then only it will be a successful one. Otherwise, if we make a common program for all the tribes, it will not be a successful one.
Okay, it's good. Your suggestions are good, well taken care of. But my only request to you is that if possible for you, you please give 1 or 2 or 3 pages a note on this so that it can be given to the concerned
Yes, sir.
ministry. Okay. Now,
Okay, sir. Within a
Gangadhar,
day or two, I will send it. I will send it. I will send it to you.
okay. Now the uh, Anantamula, T. Anantamula, she has got up and she is getting ready. So she may appear in 15 minutes time. She said that she slept more, so she could not come at 4 o'clock, but she is getting ready. Maybe for another 15 minutes she may join us. So now I will request our patron, Dr. A.K. Pandey to say something to, because you are a very, very senior bureaucrat. Your juniors are watching it and they are interested to listen to. So please give some suggestions, recommendations that what we should do for uh, climate change mind. And climate change mind means perception of the people, perception of the bureaucracy, perception of the policymakers, and policy of the program drafter. So how it can improve the situation of the negative impact, as Professor Gangadharji has talked about the negative impact of the climate change. So the people are interested, your younger generation friends are interested to know that how and what recommendations are there, which they should take note of it. So please, you say something if you like that, because Anantamula will take another 15 minutes. She has just phoned that she will take some time. So in the meantime, I will request Shri Neerajji that if possible, he can also contact T. Anantamula so that she may hurry up and join earlier. Otherwise, after the uh, speech of the chairman and of the session and the patron of the society, it will be difficult to incorporate her uh, suggestions. So, if possible, Neerajji, you may request her to join us as early as possible. So now I will request our patron of the Society for Empowerment, Dr. A.K. Pandeyji, to make his presentations.
Pandey sir, kindly unmute yourself. Pandey sir, kindly unmute yourself.
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Yes, thank you, Professor Naran. I think I am audible now. Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay.
Are you
Yes,
audible?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, you are audible.
I was hearing carefully the analysis of Professor Gangadhar and your lecture also. Initially, there was some problem with internet at my side, so I was not hearing. Basically, the issue today is about mindset of tribals and climate change. And somehow we are trying to find out its effect, good and bad, remedies for avoiding bad effect, inconvenient things, and so on. Subject, I have not been very thorough with overall subject, but advantage of being not very thorough is that your mind is free for new ideas, fresh ideas, and having a different look and a different look at the problem from the traditional and well-known ways. I try to explain myself that the subject, as it is for tribal mindset towards this, it distinguishes with non-tribal mindset towards climate change. Though the fact is that both are adversely affected most of the time from the climate change. That is first thing. What we are trying to understand is that the climate change, we know it well, so we can respond to the problem quickly and in our advantage, while tribals cannot, because they don't know the near future, the change in climate, and how to respond with. That is, we start with this. And we try to find out how we, as government or a civilized society, should act in order to take tribal population with us. What is tribal population as today? When I look from space, the whole earth, there are some people living in forests, not very well communicated with outer society, don't have modern equipments, other things. But the positive thing, what I find about those people is that they live in peace and harmony with nature. They don't cause big bands stopping water, which change the climate. They don't carry on big mineral excavations. They don't make very long roads so as the hills break down and landslide take place. So their living is totally with in harmony with nature. Not only that, they spend nominal energy. Let me say the energy requirement of we people and their theoretically all the energy Earth is using, means we are using, is solar energy. In forest, through chlorophyll, it is converted into wood. Wood is from wood they get fire, from fire heat, and corn also from the same sunlight. And with the energy coming in their share, with that they survive through ages. Also, they move on food, they use animals, other things. So their energy input and output is same. They live in complete harmony. While the civilized society, so called, we say, here we use collected energy. The forests, which were thousands of years ago on Earth, they have gone down the Earth, and from that we find out coal, petroleum, etc. Use that energy. Though, therefore, the resources get depleted in our case. So when we say that impact on tribals, it is that when climate change comes, we are able to respond quickly with stored energy and our ability to use it, while they are only depending on their food and other things to move away from the danger and respond with things. Now, this is one part of the problem. Climate change, we have started discussing, sir, but when we look through the history, just go to Ahmedabad. There was a harbor near Ahmedabad that is called Lothal, where ships were coming, Indian business ships, they were coming to that harbor. Go to Dwarka, the whole city is inside the sea. Even in Egypt or other places, in deserts also, they have found fossils of fishes. What does it say? That the long history of the mankind, long history of the earth, many changes have taken place, and climate change is one of those. Today, we classify climate change in two parts. One is something which we are causing, and other is which is naturally going on due to rotation of Earth, effect of sun, and other uncontrollable things. So that climate change will is inevitable. It is inevitable. It will affect us also. It will affect tribals also. It will affect other creatures of the world also, which are ecologically connected with our own life. Now, what is the overall principle? The overall principle which limits our ability to do the things is the Darwin's principle. That is survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest means that amongst us, whether tribal or non-tribal, those who can fit themselves with this changing climate, maybe by moving ahead, maybe by using instruments, maybe by making shelters for us, they will survive. And in the past also, that has been the ruthless principle. Whatever we do, whatever hard we try, those who don't fit with that changing in the environment, they will slowly be taken away like dinosaurs, like other creatures, other things. But as on today, it is good. The change is slow, and we can forecast it. So, what is our duty as on today towards this change? Our duty is to understand. First thing is that the tribal people are in harmony with environment, and as the environment will change due to climate, perhaps they will have to struggle for life and death immediately. Suppose there is a river which changes path, so either they move away quickly or they die there because their communication is slow. While with us, we we are affected by slightest change. If temperature goes 2 degrees more in Delhi, people start crying that it is summer and now it is desert going on. We can understand and respond quickly. Now with these two principles, that one group understands and responds quickly and with large scale, with stored resources and logical ability and equipment in his hand, while the other group has got something. He can tolerate changes, he can survive with harsh climate for some time, for some time. So, as on today, we have to correct, clear, make a bridge because we can forecast and we can face and we can handle changes. But we find difficulty in surviving with that, with change. While the other brother, our tribal, he has got hardy, he is hardy, he has been surviving thousands of years in the harsh climate, in harmony with the nature, and using just renewable resources of nature. He doesn't use much the stored resources. Only that much resource which from sun comes to the forest and to his farms and eats, builds his tools. Everything else doesn't dig very deep to find out tools. So to have a of harmonious shift means that when climate changes, we also survive in that. He also survives in that. What we will have to do is that the communication line to make them understand our forecasts, that has to be established quickly. That means that it is not their small gods and those knowledgeable people among us. It is not the end of the knowledge, but we must communicate with them in such a way that the knowledge goes to them. And the second thing is that when we make the plan, when we make our response plan to the climate change, they also should be taken slowly, because they will not move very fast. They will not respond very fast. But through our communication lines and our assistance, they will be more. It will be easier for them to survive, understand, and take us to new world. The change is slow, but it is inevitable. The sun, the earth will keep rotating on its axis. Our south pole and north pole will keep on melting, maybe even more, as more and more heat will be generated in the earth. But how to respond depends on not only our own planning system, but also our understanding that any plan which is not in harmony with the other part will succeed. So, what was today's lesson is that we try to communicate the facts. We try to communicate the change of weather, its past. Like I told, that earth will sink, that hills will be flattened, that rivers will change their course. These things, knowledge we will shall have to share and take those people amongst us. Uh, so it is a very general kind of discussion, but as Professor Gandhar said, small schemes, small projects, they feel everything. And they have to be tested in in light of these three principles. That is the harsh change in environment, your style nature, and the ruthless principle of survival. So that is what comes to my mind to the long-term strategy plan, tribal change, for planning for tribals in respect of climate change. And I think what Professor Gangadhar said, mostly it comes in line with this, but more and more thought-provoking thoughts has to be given along these lines. So thank you, sir, for listening me patiently. I have, I will be there with all of you all the time. And if anything more I can say, please suggest. And also, because I am not from the subject, there may have been some diversion from accepted principles. So I will be sorry. My knowledge will increase if you point out to that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot. Namaste. 15 minutes. Why? I think some time more has been left for me. Professor Narayan. Hello. Oh, आवाज नहीं आ रही है. Professor Narayan. Professor Narayan, hello. I am not hearing actually.
देखिए क्या प्रॉब्लम हुआ, उनको आवाज नहीं मिल रहा है पांडे साहब को.
हाँ सर, आपका माइक म्यूट था, अब ठीक है.
अच्छा, ठीक है.
ठीक है.
तो उनका भी मैसेज, नारायण सर, उनका भी मैसेज आया है, वो कनेक्ट करने का कोशिश कर रही हैं, बात हुई है उनसे, तो वो 1-2 मिनट में जुड़ जाएंगी सर. आप तब तक कंटिन्यू रखिए.
अच्छा, ठीक है. तो डॉक्टर पांडे, देयर आर few questions from you by your juniors.
Nayan sir,
that is
Nayan
okay,
sir,
thank you.
she has
Now
joined.
she has come with us, so we were waiting for you, and since now you have come, just now Professor Dr. A.K. Pandey has finished his deliberations, so there are 2-3 questions. So I am just raising those questions to him. After that, you will take over the floor. So the question is that the policy and programs meant for the this climate change is that in the light of the Darwin's theory, what you have talked about, or what changes should be made in the policy and programs by the government in line with the Darwin's theory, which you have just suggested?
Yes, yes. It is because that whatever we try to implement, that depends on the strength and financial resources and our capability of
What
the
will you
whole
suggest?
government.
What will be your suggestion for government?
My suggestion will be that there can be so many programs for welfare of tribals and welfare of anybody. But just like the finances put a bar on using it in large scale, similarly, these regulatory principles are such that we cannot fight with nature all the time by our resources. And once we are in harmony with these, then we will definitely succeed.
But then how does this Darwinian theory comes in between? Because that is
Darwinian theory is that we cannot start principles to fight with the nature when the climate change comes. We have to move with harmony with that, so that uh, we we move to the safer places where
no.
we
But what
where we
is
can
the from your presentation, the government wants to know that so far the Darwinian principle has not been taken into consideration in policy and programs. Now you are adding this Darwinian theory. So what is that new which this Darwinian theory will add to that?
uh, I told that you have to fit into the environment. So if environment is changing, then we must make our plans so which is in harmony with that change instead of quarreling with the change. That is what Darwin says. Because the environment will not change. We will
Yes.
have to change.
Then the other observation is that by 2030, we may be able to minimize the emission
Yes.
at zero level.
Yes.
So, but yes, do we have any details of a communication plan for this?
No, whatever that emission level we are thinking, that is by stopping the use of mineral fuel and more use of renewable energy. That is the basic principle. Uh, I think that is a target, and we must go along with this to use maximum renewable energy as soon as
I
possible.
will, I will
Pan-
like to request
Pandey,
you.
Pandey
बोलिए.
sir,
Yes,
Pandey sir,
yes.
there is a question on Facebook, as it is live on Facebook and YouTube also. So there is a question on this, that most of the workers and communities belonging to scheduled tribes depends on coal mines, especially in the state of Jharkhand, for their livelihood. And in case of closing down of mines, as a part climate change mitigation to reduce greenhouse gases, in that case, what will be the impact on workers and communities and how to address their issues?
Uh, I have seen that problem from close. Whenever the coal mines close their operations, it is true that many local people enter those mines, close, and start digging things at a very low scale and very high risk. We also ask those companies why not close it well so that they can't enter, but they said that there is no answer to the theft. And once somebody enters into those, he knows that he may die. Uh, Means there should be some positive effort for that, unless they are given some alternative employment. But their status is just like Lakadhara of ancient times. It is everywhere. Coal is everywhere. You have to just pick it up and sell it for survival, uh, and sometimes uh, bear the high risk. So, as far as wood is concerned, that is a renewable source, but coal is non-renewable source. If their total quantity can be contained, then our emission level will come down. In fact, uh, many people using heater in winter. we all see. That is the most criminal offense, using heater, because for 1 kilocalorie in heater, you spend so much coal in the powerhouse and transmit that electricity to this place with very low efficiency. Personally, I feel that using heater is more more worse than using coal for heating you in tribal areas and nearby places. But well, wizards differ, always differ. There is always a second opinion. But you can't stop it. It is there. Somebody is feeling cold, he starts burning it for his survival. And he doesn't have other places. There is human angle also.
So thank you very
Oh,
much, Dr. Pandey, for your presentation. But my
okay.
request to you is that please, if possible for you, please give us a write-up, because that is to be sent. You see, from last two webinars,
Okay.
most of the webinars are being watched, and so we have been asked today also to give all these papers so that the policy could be drafted accordingly. So we have no option. We have to submit it. So we will be very much, Society for Empowerment will be very much thankful to you, because through this we are also doing service to the country and to the people by providing these inputs, and your experiences is very important to have a long experience. Now we have a American expert on this subject. She has come once earlier with us. She is a political practitioner. She is a politician there, and she is representing Indians there. She is a very dynamic lady, and due to some miscommunication or what, but it was written very clearly that it is from 4 p.m. Anyway, she got delayed because. So I'm sorry if, on behalf of the Society for Empowerment, that there was some sort of communication gap. We have a similar program tomorrow also from 4 o'clock, and I request you to come to that program also tomorrow. So now it will be another round of your presentation, and then the chairman of today's program, Dr. A.K. Pandey, senior bureaucrat, he will make he will make a summary of all the presentations, and then it will end. So please, now I will request you, Ms. Manga, to carry out, make your presentation. Namaste. Oh, you are mute. Your voice is not coming.
Namaskar, everybody. I really apologize first for being late. This is quite early in the morning. There's some miscommunication. I really apologize. I think I would really love to participate in anything that Professor J has always been very kind and very intellectually stimulating to be on one of these forums on climate change. And I am a big Gandhian, and I followed Gandhian philosophies and principles coming from a family of freedom fighters. And my grandfather was a freedom fighter, and my other grandfathers, they have been in politics in India. So coming from that background, I do respect what Empowerment for Society is doing for India and taking it forward to protect the climate. And I'm also practicing Hindu, even though I'm an American, and I proudly call myself Hindu American. I come from a military family. My son is a lieutenant commander in U.S. Navy, and my husband is a full-time professor in University of North Carolina. I'm myself a politician and a consultant with Department of Defense and Homeland Security. So this is a great opportunity to put my heart forward, what I really think of climate change and how that is impacting just not India or United States, the entire world. To me, this is a hoax of the Western world trying to control the developing countries. I do not want to even add India as a developing country because it has been a forerunner in several areas. It is just that Indians and India is falling for the narratives of the Western world. I think the first step to take is not to acknowledge and to react to everything that the Western world wants India to do. I think we have our Vedic concepts that I simply want to go back to how to protect our environment. I mean, I prepared a presentation, but then I decided, no, I want to speak from my heart, the facts, because this climate change is just not impacting India, it's impacting Americans in United States. This has almost become a controlling point for the government and for the Western world to control the people, to control the countries. The reason I say that is, since when did man become so powerful to control or to protect the earth? The earth has been there for several billions of years, and it has always existed before man and after man. It has always existed, and it knows how to take care of it itself. The only greed that we must stop and make an effort is not to create concrete jungles and electronic jungles and heaps of electronic that we are using. We have become so dependent on electronics. We are creating electronic jungles. We are past the stage. We are still creating concrete jungles, killing forests, killing our nature that's actually helping us to survive. And we are in that cycle. Time to get out of that cycle. Coming from the political perspective, I think the Democrats are bad news, just not for United States, even for India, because Bharat is my mother, and I do have my stakes and the love for the country speak from my heart that we need to protect our nature. The only way to protect nature is having better laws. Back in India, and of course in United States, we do have some good laws that we do enforce to protect the tribals, the Aboriginal, and we do have laws to protect our forests, national forests, and we do not allow deforestations in those areas. That's how we protect our forests, and that's how you protect Aborigines and the tribals in India. So the reason I say it's important to protect our forests is forests have a lot of medicinal herbs, lot of resources that we can tap on. And the tribals, I really respect all of the tribals in India and the Aborigines in the United States who have the wealth of knowledge of survival in the forests and the resources we can tap on. I really do appreciate Mr. Pandey's, I've seen his last part of presentation, and it was very good. I mean, how to protect natural resources and coal mines that give survival for people and jobs and so forth. But we also have a duty to protect our nature. That's the first thing. I think for us, at least from the American perspective, where I come from, I don't see Mahatma Gandhi as a father of India. but I see him. If we stop seeing Mahatma Gandhi as a political figure and start seeing him for his philosophical and principles that he believed in and lived his life, he would be the best example where India should be heading to. He is the father of the world if we followed the Gandhian principles. He believed in agricultural industry in India. India must refocus on agricultural industry. That in itself become an industry for the world. It has so much of resources. And all the Ayurveda comes from the forests and the tribals. I think this will be the most appropriate place for me to mention that during the COVID time, some of my friends who got stuck in India, they have been cured by Ayurveda, by the tribals. They survived. And without much of getting sick, they came back to United States safe and healthy. We need to acknowledge that our tribals have that extensive knowledge. And another way to protect our own culture and our forest and our climate is going back to our Vedic roots. Probably there should be laws, and we should train our next generation through education. And if you have, any of you had read Chamakam, it's all about protecting nature. It's all about protecting herbal plants in the forest. It's all about protecting farming. It's all about protecting the animals. It's all about protecting everything that we see in nature, just not us. If at all we want to protect our nature, our planet, I think we must stop depending too much on the electronic junk that we are creating year after year. We have become so used to tossing our electronics almost every year. At least this is a factual back, at least here back in United States, that people change their cell phones, people change their laptops. And what are we doing to recycle this electronic junk that we are creating? We spend more time on electronics than we spend time with our child, with our sibling, with a family member or a friend. The free social media has made us the electronic junkies. We have to go back to our ancient way of living, that wisdom. It doesn't mean that we are not going to focus on technology. The Vedic culture is all about advanced technology that we have not seen even in United States. I think most of our ancient temples back in India, they're all embedded with our ancient knowledge, how to protect forests, how to protect our, how to process our medical industry, how to do procedures. I think we need to have, I think India needs to first have their laws protecting the temples, because that's where the greatest strength of India is. Your knowledge and your Vedas are part of the temples. They're embedded. They need to be protected. They have so much of knowledge about how to protect the environment. There are several videos showing how to protect the climate, how Earth regulates itself. We need to tap into all of that knowledge. India needs to have some laws to protect that intellectual property rights. And farming is the biggest thing. Everything starts with food. Everything starts with farming. And the forests are a key. And tribals are a key to protecting most of the species on Earth. How else are we going to protect our climate if we can't protect other species on Earth? I think we should go back to our Gandhian principles of how to live a healthy life, a healthy lifestyle that is environmentally friendly. The only thing we must stop creating is more concrete jungles and electronic jungles that we are now creating. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I just wanted to speak from my heart the things that do matter to us, that do affect our lifestyle. The lifestyle change is what we need to protect our environment. We don't take a quick walk to a 0.3 mile grocery store. Rather, we take a scooter or the car and burn the resources. What did Gandhiji tell us? Cottage industries, the technology, absolutely technology is a must, but then we have to have our checks and balances of how we are going to balance our electronic technology advancements and protecting our nature and refocusing on agricultural industry. Thank you. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I really enjoy being here. And I do apologize again for being a little late. I thought it was going to start somehow at 7:30 or Eastern Standard Time. So I really do apologize. And thanks for having me on your platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Manga. We are very much thankful to you. But for you also, there are some queries that you have just suggested that we should go for the ancient system, the Vedic system, which we have for this climate change. I think you have understood the spirit of the Indian Constitution and the different ministries which are working in India. So, do you suggest that the Vedic knowledge be shifted to this forest department and the tribals department, or all these should be mingled into one department? There should be some sort of mingling. Is this will this be, if it is done, then will it be more meaningful for in controlling the this climate change problem in tribal India?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. It should have its own ministry in protecting this Vedic knowledge and collaborating with other ministries, and the administration should closely work with this ministry and make sure that there's a good flow of information between the education department, between the food department. I don't know it. I think it's called Food Corporation of India.
That is different.
This is exactly how you have to collaborate with several ministries to make things happen. And why I insist on education is children are our future. I think along with the national song of India, I think Chamakam also should be taught as a national Vedic hymn, because it is all about telling children to protect the nature, to protect life, to protect herbs, to protect everything around them. How well is that not structured for our Vedic principle and Gandhian principle to teach our children? Always, every day, a reminder to be in sync with the nature. I
Yes.
think they are our future. And I think the education department must take this on and make children recite and make them understand the every line of their chamakam. I think not only the adults, even the children should be taught. I think that should become our national hymn. I mean, I keep saying this hour is because my roots are from India. India is my mother. I may love the country that I've adopted. This is my home, but India is my mother. I love India no less than my own home. So I do care about what happens in India and Indian growth. And I think I read an article by, I think, Modi ji about the climate change. I was very impressed the way he thinks about. I think he is more aligned to Gandhian principles. I mean, I'm not so tuned to Indian politics, but that article was very clear that he is so tuned to Gandhian principles, to our Vedic knowledge. I think India must tap on his knowledge and wealth of knowledge and his vision to bring forth those Vedic principles to
Yes.
protect. And India should never fall for the Western pressure of climate change. It's nothing but a hoax. Earth has existed for millions and billions of years, and we only live on Earth for 100 years, and the Earth has lived for billion of years. And we all know the Gaia hypothesis: the Earth regenerates itself; it takes care of itself. I think we need to focus on taking care of ourselves. That will
Yes.
automatically take care of the climate or the planet.
Yeah. You're right. These days, I think you are coming to our show after 1 year or so. So
Yes.
now we are working in with the principle of Gandhian principle of life, and we are proceeding through that. Recently, we are working in very close proximity with the uh, Gandhi Smriti Darshan, of which, as you mentioned, Modi ji is the chairman of that. So we are very closely working on that, and we are going to have about 50 webinars, series of 50 webinars on the traditional knowledge and the Gandhian knowledge. All that we are most likely we are starting it from 4th of December. So
Fantastic.
it will go up to that. So I've said I will be very much thankful to you whatsoever you have just said, because there was two questions for you. So you have answered all those, but it will be nice if you can give it some sort of in writing so that it can be adopted. Government may adopt it.
Sure. I can
And,
put it in, I mean, whatever I spoke, I can put it in my presentation and give it to you. Yeah, I
okay.
created a presentation with all facts and figures. Now, I just wanted to speak from my heart because that's the only way you can reach out to people. And
Yes, yes,
always facts doesn't uh, resonate with
yes.
people.
True,
Sometimes you
true.
need to speak to your heart and what you
Yes,
feel about this whole climate change. I think I wanted to connect with people. Some realities. Some realities are really bitter because we are electronic junkies. I mean, I'm one of those. I'm trying to get away from being electronic junkies, but the only way to communicate with each other. But then we must stop becoming dependent on the electronics and focus on our Vedic knowledge and the way we lived our life. And I think Gandhian principles are, I think, the first step we need to take for better India, for better world, and better United States. And I must now, I think I cannot resist myself saying this. All of the Vedic principles and the Gandhian principles, they align so beautifully with our US Constitution, what we believe in.
hmm,
And the Republican principles, the Republican Party principles, they align beautifully with the Gandhian principles more than the Democrat principles. I
Yes.
think the right is always right and the Gandhi is always right. I think I want to insist. To me, more I read about Gandhiji and his philosophy and principles, I somehow refuse to see him as a political figure. He's the father of the world.
Yes. Father of the world. True. Very
He's
true.
the father of the
Recently,
world. I don't want India to be hogging on to Gandhiji and call him father of the nation. I think he is a figure to become the father of the world. And Gandhi's principles are so dear to most Americans I talk to in this country. So I think thanks for bringing forth Gandhian principles and our Vedic knowledge. And Gandhi believed more in the Vedic knowledge than the Western
yeah.
theory of our principles.
Yes. True. Words. So uh, we will be submitting a draft of all the presentation to government, and I believe that people from different ministries are also watching this program. So your suggestion for the Vedic tradition and mixed with the Gandhian philosophy is well appreciated,
Thank
and
you.
we shall be the, very much thankful to you if you can give it in writing. And if
Definitely. I'll put it in a presentation and send it
yeah,
to you.
and if possible, please also join us tomorrow. Tomorrow we are also discussing on this issue. This issue is very close to the Prime Minister of India, and he has made the presentation very recently
Okay.
on international platform. So your views agrees with his views. So you are most welcome. If you like, you can come tomorrow also, 4 o'clock,
Sure. I would love to join.
and link will be sent to you. Neeraj ji will send you the link to you, and we will expect to you. So now I request Dr. A.K. Pandey, our president, patron of the Society for Empowerment, to say a few words on whatsoever he likes to do, on he wants whatsoever remarks he wants to give. Most welcome.
Uh, Thank you, Professor Narayan. I have been carefully listening the proceedings and about the thoughts of our speakers, especially last speaker, Miss Monk. Uh, her her views about Gandhian principle that it is the father of world rather than father of nation, just because what he said was not particularly special for a nation or a community. What he said and thought was for everybody. And as we were discussing the survival thing, it is that principle of least pressure on human resources and earth resources, living harmony with nature. These principles will actually survive in long run. And whatever is contrary to that, as I said, the ruthless principle of Darwin, the ruthless principle of survival, will destroy all those things which cannot stand the test of harmony with nature and least pressure on the people.
Yeah.
Professor Gangadhar had given details of facts and also how they should be used to formulate government policy towards towards tribal response to change in climate. And overall, I don't want to say a lot on those things, But sometimes I personally feel that life of tribals in harmony with nature has got more potentiality in long run to survive thousands and thousands of years than the civilizations, good cities, concrete jungles, and scientific progresses. Some people say that science to this level, we think that we have done much of knowledge and engineering, but in the past has been thousands of years ago also people were as knowledgeable. Otherwise, they could not have created Ajanta Ellora temple. They could not have created pyramids of mist. So the knowledge, this progress, the ruthless use of natural resources will not survive very last. It will, it is suicidal. It will kill there. What will survive is living in harmony with nature and understanding the nature as if we are part of it. And we must not only give help to tribal, we must learn from those people also our long-term strategies of survival. I think not more we can summarize from this thought. It can be written in so many words. I thanks everybody, including Madam Mac, so and Professor Narayan for this wonderful seminar, and hope we continue later on. Thank you. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pandey. Now I will request Ashish Neeraj to give vote of thanks to the participants.
Thank you very much. I formally I would like to thank all our guests today, Ms. Uh, Manga Anant Mulaji, Professor M.R. Gangadhar ji, Dr. A.K. Pandey sir, or Professor S. Narayan sir. On behalf of Society for Empowerment, I thank you all for sparing your valuable time for this webinar, and we will like to have you again on our some other webinar very soon. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaskar.
Okay.